Hi everyone, we're back. I tried filming this video about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but I ended up filming it vertically instead of horizontally. And I love the way the video turned out, but it wasn't like suitable for YouTube, so I'm refilming it. But earlier this week, I talked to someone who has a similar issue to me, and they just inspired me to like remake this video and share my story to hopefully help other people who are suffering with their disease or just want to talk to me about it. So I'm going to share my story with SCD and Humira, and hopefully I can inspire some of you to share theirs and help other people. So here we go. Come here, baby. Okay, story time. So I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease about a year and a few months ago, so November of 2018. And I had many symptoms, I was experiencing many symptoms before I was diagnosed. But for like a few years, I just thought, okay, like maybe I just have fast metabolism, or maybe I just had different reasons to believe that my body was being normal. But then the few months leading to like before I was diagnosed, everything was getting really severe, and I was like, all right, something has to change. Like, this is not normal. So I went to the doctor. They were checking for like endometriosis. They checked for, I was complaining of like back pain also. So they were doing MRIs, a bunch of different tests. And finally my doctor was like, okay, I want you to get a colonoscopy. And at that point I was like, everything we've done so far, like in my head, I was like, everything we've done so far has been like negative, thankfully, but also like I wanted to find it. But everything has been coming out negative, so what makes her think I'm gonna have like something in the colonoscopy? I'm a 18-year-old girl. But I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I did the colonoscopy, I did the whole prep. It was a nightmare, but I got through it. And then the second I woke up from my procedure, my other doctor was like, yeah, you have Crohn's disease. A week later, my GI doctor met with me, and she's like, yeah, we recommend you start Humira. You have moderate to severe Crohn's disease. And I was like, Humira sounds so familiar. So I realized that Humira was all over the TV, and like all the commercials talk about Humira. And if you take Humira, you might get tuberculosis, you might get cancer, you might die. All these crazy like side effects. And I was like, that is not for me. So I heard about paleo, and paleo is a diet that reduces inflammation in the body, and it has a lot of different benefits. So I started paleo. I felt a little bit better. I was doing that for about 2 months, and before I started any diet, any life change, anything like that, my doctor took just like labs. So she took stool samples and some blood samples, and the blood, I think it's called the c-reactive protein, the CRP, that was like 36 when it should have been below 7. And my stool inflammation was 1,000 and something when it should have been below 50. So 50 and below is a normal range. Mine was at 1,000, which was they're both very high. Anyway, so fast forward 2 months, I'm on paleo. I cut out gluten, I cut out dairy, cut out sugar, processed foods, soy, some other stuff. Felt a little bit better, and my CRP, which is the blood inflammation, went down to below the 7 marker. So it was like 3 point something, which was great. And then she's like, okay, like that looks good. So let's do the stool test too. And the stool test jumped from 1,000 before anything to 460, which was a huge improvement. Obviously, it's still above 50, so I still had inflammation, but it was a huge improvement. So she's like, okay, well, that has like a lot of fluctuation, so you still have inflammation, and I recommend Humira. But in my head, I was like, that was a huge jump, so I'm going to keep going. And then I was doing paleo for a few more weeks, and then I heard about SCD because I was at an event and I was mentioning like Crohn's and food, and a lady I was talking to, she's like, oh, my daughter has Crohn's. She has Crohn's and she's doing this diet, which is similar to paleo. And I was like, oh, I have Crohn's. And then she's like, yeah, this is what it's called a Specific Carbohydrate Diet. And the whole way home, I was driving home, I was like, okay, the simple carbohydrate diet, like I kept repeating that instead of Specific Carbohydrate Diet. And I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, I heard about this crazy new diet. Anyways, that was before I really knew like how the diet works and everything about it. But I was really excited. I went to Google right away when I went home, and I realized like this is a diet that's perfect for Crohn's and celiacs and diverticulitis and all that stuff. So I started that diet, but at the time I wasn't aware of like the intro phase and how to properly like take out food and then reintroduce them if it feels good and like all this stuff. So I jumped to eating like the lactose-free cheese. I was eating like baked goods that I made myself, but I didn't realize that you had to do like the chicken soup phase and like the apple juice phase and see what works for your body. So after a few months on SCD, before I knew about like the correct, proper way to introduce foods, my number went up to 726, I believe. So definitely below 1,000, but it definitely went up from 400. So I was concerned and I was kind of doubting SCD, and I was like, maybe I should have like stuck with paleo, or maybe I should go back to paleo. And SCD is very specific. It's not easier or harder than paleo, but you can't eat cacao and you can't eat sweet potato. Those were my two top foods when I was on paleo. So it was a big cut, but it's also the same as like no gluten, no dairy. So there are similarities. And then with SCD, you're allowed to have the cheese, which is good because paleo you can't have any dairy products. And you're allowed to have certain types of beans if you pre-soak them to remove the gas. Anyways, so the number was 726 and definitely went up. So I was a little bit concerned. And then I was like, I'm just going to stick with SCD a little bit longer and keeping like extra strict, not eating like spices that I didn't know about or like natural flavors, things like that. And at this time I was still having like really bad back pain. So my Crohn's symptoms were feeling a lot better, but obviously still not perfect. But I also had really bad back pain, and I kept saying, back pain. And my doctor was like, it's not really a Crohn's symptom. Like, it's not a Crohn's symptom at all. She's like, you already got a back MRI, a lower back MRI, which I did a year ago. And she's like, it came out normal, so I don't know like what else we should do. And then I like explained my pain and like where it was, and I said, it's almost like my hip. It's my hip joints, basically. My back, like where my lower back / sacrum area meet my hips. So it's called the sacroiliitis, the SI joints. I think it's sacroiliitis joints. Now I know. And she's like, all right, let's do an x-ray and see like what's going on. I got the x-ray done. And then a few days later, she's like, okay, we sent this to the rheumatologist. We see like some abnormality, like there's some calcification, and the rheumatologist wants you to do an MRI in that area. So the MRI is a different area, and the area I did before, the lower back, was more of like my lower spine. So it didn't catch the sacroiliitis joints. So I went, got the MRI done, and then I was diagnosed with a second autoimmune disease. And this one is called Ankylosing spondylitis, or AS for short. And that one attacks like the spine and the spine joints and like the back joints. And when I say attack, I mean like it causes inflammation, which causes pain. And then if that is left untreated, the spine basically fuses together, and then you're left with a bunch of debilitating problems, as you age. But I was already having, really bad, severe, debilitating problems. Like for the months before I was diagnosed, I was dealing with sciatic pain, and I couldn't, like everything when I had sciatic, everything was severe. I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, I couldn't lay down. Like it was excruciating pain for like the whole day. So When I was finally diagnosed, I was kind of relieved, even though obviously it's not nice to have anything like that. But I was relieved that I was diagnosed and like I have more information about it now. So I asked her, okay, like what is the treatment for this one? And she said, also Humira. So it kind of came full circle and I couldn't really avoid it. So I was like, okay, let's start Humira. And then before I started, my GI doctor said, which is like my Crohn's doctor, and she said, before we start Humira, because it treats Crohn's and your ankylosing spondylitis, let's do just like the like a baseline test. And at this time, I was extremely strict with SCD. I took out all nightshades. I took out all my food intolerances. I took a food intolerance test a few weeks prior to this, and it came back that I had like egg white intolerance, watermelon, and onion. I took all those out, and I'm really interested about food intolerance. So if you took a test or if you got any samples done, leave a comment down below letting me know what organization you went through and what your results were, and if you think they were accurate or not. Anyways, so I took out all the foods that bothered me. I was extremely strict with SCD. I didn't eat anything that was illegal on the diet for a good 2 months before my baseline testing, before Humira. And anyway, so I started Humira, and then a few days later my results came back for my stool inflammation and my blood inflammation, and everything was perfect below the baseline. My blood results were in the normal range. They were below 7. They stay like that throughout the whole diet. My stool inflammation, which was like my my deciding factor of like if this is working or not, that dropped down to 46, and 50 is like 50 and below is anything below 50 is good. So 46 was amazing. And just thinking about like how far I've come. So I went from 1,000 to 400 to 700, now all the way to 46. So it's a huge jump thanks to SCD. My pain, like my back pain with my ankylosing spondylitis has gone down tremendously. Like there's no pain anymore. I'm back doing yoga. I'm back at the gym. I feel really good, and I feel like I just have like more energy, and I'm happier now, and I just feel very happy, like very good. So I'm thankful for that. But I was like, okay, now that I'm on Humira, maybe I can start incorporating different foods that aren't SCD legal. So I started having food, like I never had like gluten and dairy since I was diagnosed, but I had nut, flour, and more, I guess, additives, if you will. Or I went out to restaurants and I just ordered like a plain grilled chicken, but I'm sure they added some spices. So little things like that. Thinking like, oh, Humira is like my safety net, like I'll be covered if I, eat or, cheat with like different foods. And then I got like a retest for the stool inflammation, and it jumped to 126. So there's definitely a correlation between food and Humira and Crohn's. And I really think that SCD is the way to go. I think Humira has changed my life, and I'm really grateful to have like modern medicine like this. But I don't think Humira is treating my Crohn's 100%. So I'm still on SCD. I went back to like being 100%, and I feel a lot better. I'm waiting for my another stool and blood work lab tests. But I'm very grateful to have a great team of doctors, and also have like the holistic knowledge and a support group to help me with my journey. So whatever your journey is, I hope you find great health. I hope you feel good. Please DM me or message me or reach out. I love talking to people with any types of disease. I think that disease, as terrible as it is, I think it unites us, and I think that our disease, differences and even similarities are what brings us together and what makes people, human. So let me know what you'd like to see next. Leave a comment down below, like this video, subscribe, and I hope you feel good. Thank you so much for watching.